All right, we made it. 200 episodes.
Woo!
200. I'll do some fireworks or something. You know, how do you do fireworks for audio listeners? Just a bunch of booms.
There you go.
So we're just sitting here talking like a couple weeks ago, and we're like, oh my gosh, we're about to hit 200. We should do something. And like this podcast has done really well. You know, just some quick stats. We have Richard Bauer here. He was one of our previous guest speakers during the pandemic, and he's been kind of helping us build out like reels and shorts and all this video. So these stats that come up are just largely due to Richard doing some kick-ass work here. And like I was looking at 39.38 thousand YouTube video views just in the last year. 1.42 million reel views. Like, coming from our humble beginnings where we had like 1 or 2 listeners, in episode 1, and moving up to this level, this is fantastic.
What did I don't know that I ever listened to your first episode. What did you use to record your first episode? Was that before Zoom days?
That was before Zoom. That was Audacity. And then I think we would meet on Zoom and then record our WAV files locally. And Skip would send me his WAV or drop it in the shared drive. So we were recording on each of our PCs in Audacity, and then we would stitch them together. And boy, has the streaming and podcast world come a long ways since we started our podcast.
Well, Adam, I do remember, I got to say, at the very, very beginning, I remember when you wanted to kick these off, and I was like, oh, podcast. That's just, I'm not the social media kind of guy. And I was like, oh, no. And, we rocked along for just a little while, and, we hit like, I don't know, a dozen different, followers, and half of those were friends and family. And it was just, in the very beginning, I was like, oh, we're going to really do this. And you were like, we got to be consistent. We got to be consistent, and, really stake it out and push forward. And bit by bit, it picked up momentum just a little bit more and a little bit more. And, we started gaining more. And then, Richard, I think you were one of our kind of breakout sessions, when we had yours on, and it generated a lot of comments and everything going on there. And it just, you keep sticking with it, and it grows bit by bit. And then it gains its own momentum. And it's been pretty exciting to see this evolve over the many years now. Do you have a date, Adam? I was wondering about that. What was the date of our first podcast?
That's what I'm going to grab right now. It's like, it's right about this time. It's like April. Problems of the Past was the first episode, published on April 29th, 2020.
2020.
Oh, wow.
Okay. That's it.
We missed it by a month.
Yeah. Well, and we've been consistent with that. I mean, I know there are some channels that, they may release 5 podcasts in a week or something, but we've been on our cadence. We established this weekly deal, and it's 1 a week, and it comes out every week. We take off one week for 1 or 2 weeks throughout the year, Adam, isn't it? For like Christmas, and there one other week that we don't publish anything. So I just really like that. We came out with a plan. We've been working the plan. We're refining the plan, but we're sticking with the plan, and I like that. 4 years in, and we're sticking with the plan.
And I believe, Richard, your Tales from South Africa holds the record for the most downloads.
That was just because of the pineapple beer.
At least on Spotify. I'm looking at the numbers on Spotify here. So
What's cool for me, so that's a cool stat, and I mean, I'm always I always enjoy coming on the podcast and having a chat. But Skip, listening to what you were saying, podcasts currently are the #1 growing media on all platforms. So if you look at what's going on YouTube as an example, podcasts are growing more on YouTube than any other platform around, even Spotify. And the reason for that is because you've got this visual effect. So now you go and, you can go and Google and go, hey, I want to start a podcast. And you've got 17 websites that pop up, all offering you a one-click thing where you can have people from around the world all join up. But I remember when I was on the podcast with you and Adam originally, the very first time when I was talking about Tales Around the World, I remember like Adam and I were like 20 minutes in first trying to get, okay, is the Audacity working? How do I record it? Where do I send it off? Now it's a case of here's a link, click on it, and Bob's your uncle. It keeps on going. So from a social media guy, me seeing the evolution of the podcast when you guys were doing it before it was cool, before it was the in thing to happen, to now see it still evolving, 2 years later. It's awesome. And, we've been chatting a little bit behind the scenes, and I'm excited to see where the podcast is going in the next 12 months. We've got some cool ideas and how to start bringing other people on to share stories and all of that type of thing. And it's really cool to see it all evolve.
Yeah. And I think, the part 2 of this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about where are we going with the podcast? How's it going to evolve over the next 200 episodes? And we're a niche podcast, so what's the problem with a niche podcast is the fact that your audience is smaller. So if you do a general podcast, like what's your favorite episode of Scrubs? You're hitting a broad, you're hitting 100 million people there. With a niche podcast, you got to celebrate smaller numbers. Whereas, my broad podcast friends, they're hitting, tens of thousands of people per episode, but the audience is everyone. We're trying to help MSPs and technicians have better conversations and to be more strategic. And so growing a podcast like this and then where you're going to go with it largely depends on the audience that we're talking to. And hearing back from MSPs, like, we'd love people to talk more about this. Looking at the episode rankings, like, what did people really like? They love the biggest problem facing MSPs. Why do your clients avoid meetings? These are our top podcasts. They get downloaded and have the most impressions and listens of all of them. And we get thousands of impressions. And that's people like looking at our podcast, listening to a few minutes of it, like watching our reels. And we getting that audience out of the small subset of people we have is really good. And I get feedback at conferences all the time, like, oh yeah, I listened to your podcast. Like, who are you? And I'll get somebody. Go ahead.
I was at a conference one time and sat down at the breakfast deal, and they're sitting around and just kind of go around and introduce yourself to everybody. And someone said, "Oh yeah, we listen to your podcast," and that was it was kind of a surreal moment. It's like, oh, wow, you've been listening to me talk, but I have no idea who you are.
I mean, our breakdown of audience, we're mostly in the United States. A bit of Canada and UK listen to us regularly. Some Australia, some people from South Africa, probably Solid Systems.
My boys and girls.
And we got a number of views like that all the way down to some Bulgaria and Poland. Interesting. Sweden, Ireland.
Yep.
I think that the challenge with getting the podcast out is that I challenge anybody to let us know in the comments, how do you target MSPs specifically with anything? So how do we as a podcast, because, I've had this discussion before, and as you talk about in niche and all of that, and I'm a YouTuber, so I know what it is to try and target a certain audience. There is nowhere that I can find anywhere that says, hey, we want to target MSPs. If you go and have a look on LinkedIn, MSPs are linked as technology companies, but so is Dell, so is Microsoft, so is everybody else.
Yeah.
And the target audience is completely different. And I don't expect the likes of Microsoft and Dell to be listening to, us talk about the challenges that small MSPs face. But how do we target them? And maybe that's a topic for another, our 300th episode, is how do MSPs target and talk to their right clients, and how do we also do that same thing for our clients? That's why I'm bald.
Yeah. I've given a lot of thought to that, because like if you go to what our audience may not know is like when you're defining your verticals. So like we talked to MSPs about define your vertical, get a niche for yourself. So are you doing hospitals? Are you doing lawyers? Are you doing dentists? Whatever it is, and then target them. So then you can go to Google or you can go to Facebook or you can go to LinkedIn and you can set your audience. There is no MSP audience.
No.
And so you kind of have to like slap something together with spit and wire and hope that you're getting the right people. So you rely a lot on word of mouth.
Yeah.
And cross-pollinating with other influencers and making sure everybody's kind of on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're doing as an MSP and you're trying to reach your audience, like who is it? If you try to hit everybody, you're going to miss, but you're going to get great impressions. You're going to get thousands and thousands of views, but do they matter? You know, are they who you want? You want to talk, you as an MSP, you want to talk to companies that want to do business with you. You want to show them that you're going to be able to help them. Same thing with our podcast. We want to show MSPs that we have this valuable conversation that needs to happen and this advice that needs to happen with your clients. But how do you get that message out there? You just got to be persistent.
Yeah.
And eventually people just say, oh yeah, you know, I'm waiting for the day where I sit down at a table and people talk about their favorite podcasts. And oh yeah, the Humanize IT one. That one's the best. You know, that's what I'm looking for.
And
it's not just us. You know, I like that we're not, you know, targeting. We do our job, and we appreciate Richard helping us out here. You know, there is work to doing social media, positioning yourself, and you know, however we can do it. You know, it's difficult, but you know, finding the right audience to talk to. But I think there are some people out there that are tailoring their messages just to get the views, just to get the clicks, right?
Yep.
And that just feels so wrong. And, you know, part of our consistency that I was mentioning earlier is our message. I mean, we're really trying to put this out there as, hey, this is what's important to us. This is our passion. We feel strongly about this. And that consistency in what we feel and are trying to communicate is part of the value that we're bringing too. And so I really like that we're not targeting, you know, we're not, you know, making things up just to get more clicks, just to get more views. What we do is important. This is talking about what we do. So I like that aspect of our podcast.
It's super tempting to be clickbaity, right?
Yes, it is.
It's like, okay, I can do this. And then all of a sudden you're like, no, I want to be value add.
Yeah.
I want to show that we are giving people advice that matters, that is going to make a difference. And it's like, we don't have any sponsors yet. We've had a couple people reach out, just haven't really been bought or pushed in any direction yet. And maybe we will in the future. There's some really interesting people who want to sponsor, and I think they align culturally with us, so we wouldn't be tainting our message.
And Adam, I think that's important. Sorry, go ahead, Skip.
No, go ahead, Richard. Go ahead.
I was going to say the whole clickbaity thing is I agree with both of you. As a YouTuber, it irritates me that the guys that are getting all the views is, and I'm not even going to go into it, but it's the clickbaity titles and pictures and all of that. And Adam and I have had this discussion numerous times. I've said to him, hey, you've got to make your titles and your images more clickbaity so that people will click on it, because you've got 1 million impressions, but that doesn't translate to views. You know, you've got to get them to click on that image and click on the podcast. But I think that what I've really enjoyed about the podcast over the last 2 years is it was relevant stuff. And even when it comes to the time of year that it is, me being in South Africa, where our financial years run different to yours and the school years run different to America and everything like that, there was still relevance in terms of saying, okay, well, we're going into Q3. What should we be doing in the space that we play in? So the information that you guys have been sharing on the podcast has always been value add. Yeah, there's been a couple of jokes in between and, you know, make it fun, and we're getting to know who you guys are as individuals. But part of that has been the authenticity of the message coming across. So, you know, from a marketing point of view, I go, hey, Adam, make it a little bit more clickbaity just to get the person in the door. But once they're there, you show the value and they keep coming back for the value.
Yeah. And that's kind of with, you know, like an MSP, right? So how's this translating? How do you advertise? If you walk into a customer and you show them a pain point, just like start with that. Like, hey, what's not going well right now? Like, oh, the internet's always going down. Grab a hold of that. That's your clickbait, right? Oh,
Yeah.
I will guarantee your internet staying solid up if you work with us. Now, talk about all the other things that they need to be working on. You know, you've hooked them. Does your internet suck? That's a clickbait. Tired of your internet sucking. You know, just you do things like that to suck people in, but then you come in with a very valuable message because you're competing against all the other people who are trying to deal with FOMO or anything that's gonna push them in the direction of, oh, you need to know, or that there's things that you don't know about IT that your MSP isn't telling you. You know, these are the secrets that you need to know. Those things will get you people, but then you have to have a value behind that.
Right.
So what's your clickbaity title for this episode, Adam?
I should say
200.
The 200th episode. You won't believe what Richard says.
There you go.
Okay, click away.
We brought a South African on to teach us about how to be rude.
Hey man, I can tell you stories about how different South Africa is to America, and the words that in South Africa you look at, you would never say it in front of your parents, and yet you come to America and you go to church and you hear it at church and you go like, what is going on? And then vice versa. You know, we have an animal in South Africa that's a penguin, but it's a certain type of penguin called a jackass penguin. And I've met Americans that go like, you can't say the word ASS. And I'm like, why? You know, that's common language. But then they use other words. You know, you say the word crap in America and it's like, that's fine. Don't worry. You'll say it at the dinner table. You say it in South Africa, you'll get excused from the dinner table. You know, involuntary.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a funny story. I think as Trevor Noah says with napkins. Napkins are diapers in South Africa or something like that. And they're like, oh, we're going to go get some street tacos. And the vendor's like, hey, you need a napkin to go with that? He's like, what's in these tacos? Oh, man, if you don't get a napkin, it's going to hit the ground. It's going to get all over your clothes.
Yep.
Like, I don't want tacos anymore.
Yep. There's funny nuances that you have between the two. But again, you know, bringing it all back to the MSP space, the challenges that an MSP faces in South Africa and in America, for the most part, are all the same. The verbiage and the words that you use are just different. But it's the same challenges day in and day out. And that's what I liked about, you know, the podcast and why I said to you in the very beginning, hey, I'm sitting in South Africa. COVID's very different here. People are making pineapple beer in their bathtubs. You know, let's get on and chat about it.
Yeah.
We're going to put that pineapple beer in the tags on this video so that you get more views.
There we go. Beer out of the bathtub. There you go. That's our clickbait for this one.
You know, I think it's fitting that on the 200th episode, we're going all over the place. We've talked about pineapple beer. We've talked about messy tacos. We've talked about business advice, verticals, all in 20 minutes, man. You know, everybody else is more organized and on topic, but not us.
No, absolutely. Well, what you said, Richard, you know, that message, just last night, I had a call with some of our members from Australia, and we're talking about, you know, how they're going to change what they've been doing. You know, they've been using our platform, but, you know, they're trying to be more engaging. And that topic and that goal that they're pushing towards is the exact same thing that we're trying to do, that our members over in UK and, you know, Richard, you were trying to do in South Africa. It is all the same. We're trying to engage with our clients in realistic ways to show the value that we bring to them as their service delivery providers. And it's just not being a vendor, but actually being a valuable part of their team. And we all can communicate with maybe some funny language, but the goals that we're working towards are all the same. And that's really cool that we get to come together, create some community there, work off of each other, and really push the boundaries of what we're able to do and how we're able to help our clients. and seeing that and working in that and being in the middle of all of it is really, really cool. So I've definitely enjoyed this.
Yeah. And a fun fact, who came up with the idea of the podcast?
That was Andrew, wasn't it?
It was.
That's what I
actually don't listen to many podcasts. And I'll hit one here and there, but Andrew's an avid podcast listener. She's like, you should do a podcast. I'm like, oh, okay. So we did. And here we are, like 4 years later. And it's been growing and growing and growing. And it's been great. We cover topics everywhere from, food. What's your favorite tool? Down to business strategy advice, how to talk to clients better. And we did mental health awareness this last month to kind of help people understand like what's going on with IT, like how do you recognize burnout in your employees and what can you do about it? And so we do tend to get all over the place with the podcast, and I'm hoping with our future, what I've got lined up is to be a little bit more focused on MSP delivery. And we'll talk about that in this next episode. So we've talked about where have we been? We've been all around the world. We've been everywhere. Literally everywhere. Yeah. And now we're moving forward to new horizons. What's the next couple of years going to bring? Stay tuned for the next episode to find out. Thank you, Skip, and Richard for being on here, and congratulations on 200 episodes.
Woo!
Yeah.